Hello everyone, I'm Susan Lee MacDonald and this is the Interview. Imagine that you are a world-class oceanographer traveling the world who suddenly suffers an accident that leaves your whole body paralyzed. Most people would become discouraged or depressed. However, today's guest is an extraordinary man who not only has had a rewarding life prior to the accident, but an even more fulfilling life afterwards. Let's meet our incredible guest who shows us by example that having unfortunate circumstances need not be a barrier to life, happiness, and success. Come on. Hello, Professor Lee.
Hi.
Hi, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm so happy to finally get a chance to meet the famous Professor Lee.
I'm flattered.
Oh, well, it's such a beautiful day, and yet you didn't have to come all the way out here to meet me.
Well, I needed some fresh air.
Oh, well, it's certainly a gorgeous fall day.
Yeah. It's a beautiful time of the year at this campus.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Professor Lee Sang-mook, an oceanographer at Seoul National University, is an icon for hope for people with disabilities. Professor Lee teaches at Seoul National University's School of Earth and Environmental Science. He completed his doctoral dissertation at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and worked with the world's top environmental experts as a researcher at the University of Durham in the UK. He joined the Korean Ocean Research and Development Institute as a researcher in 1998 and helped to widen the horizons of oceanography in Korea, and also worked as the lead scientist for the state-of-the-art research vessel Onnuri. He suffered a major accident while on an exploration project in 2006 in the US and became a quadriplegic. However, his unrelenting spirit had him back in the classroom within 6 months of the accident. He is now an energetic presence in academia, as well as a vocal activist for the rehabilitation and independence of people with disabilities. Professor Lee Sang-mook says that his accident helped him to recalibrate his life. He works to give back to the world and the people around him as a gesture of thanks for his own life, and is always guided by the mantra, now or never.
So, this is the best that I can do.
I see.
I cried before, but not after.
Wow.
I don't know why.
Wow.
It was not intentional. That was a really devastating blow for me.
Professor Lee Sang-mook has personally shown us that disabilities are not a cause for unhappiness. Join me, Susan Lee MacDonald, and hear his uplifting story on this week's The Interview.
So is this your office area?
Yeah.
So the Department of Oceanography is here?
School of Earth and Environmental Sciences.
Aha. Oh, great. Wow. I'm looking at some of your articles. I remember seeing this in the Courier Herald before.
Okay.
It's very nice.
Very recent one.
Yeah. Wow. Very intense. So this is it. It's a very large office. Well, true to being a scientist, I see also lots of maps here in your room. As an oceanographer,
Yeah.
this is, I guess, a very basic thing to have in your office.
Okay.
Wow, so you've got these incredible computer screens here.
And look at the wires.
And yeah, oh my goodness, that's a lot of work over there. Oh, what's this device here?
This is called Integramouse. It's for me like a keyboard and a mouse, computer mouse.
How does that work?
I move it with my tip of my lip, but there is a hole where I can simulate the click of a computer by sipping and puffing.
So Professor, now I can see your monitor here, and it certainly looks like you've got a lot of different applications on your computer.
Yes.
What are some of the most commonly used ones for you?
Well, I have here a a program
yes.
which I can receive and call phones over a regular line.
Okay.
And then
so regular landline phone calls.
Yep. And then you see, because I cannot touch, you know, all these smartphones
yes.
that are based on touch
yes.
are useless to me. But I have here a special application that I can use to control remotely the smartphone.
Oh, that's fantastic. So just clicking on that app, then you can use your Samsung Galaxy phone. Oh, I see your Samsung Galaxy phone appearing on your monitor here.
Right, you can see it there and here.
Oh, okay. On both of the monitors, great. So you're able to use your phone just by the sipping and puffing?
Yeah, because I can use the computer. From the computer, I'm able to control the smartphones and other stuff.
Now, I've heard that you do use some speech-to-text technology. Is that right?
Yep.
Maybe you can show us an example of something that you would be able to write through the speech-to-text technology.
Okay. For instance, I'm opening a Word document.
Okay.
Right here. And let's see. I'm with correct that. 4, okay? Susan McDonald. Select McDonald. Correct that. McDonald. Choose one. Okay. From Arirang television, select art on. Spell that. 3. I. R. A. N. 6. November. Golf. Okay. Simply insert.
Is that normally how you write letters or emails to people?
Yes.
I see.
So normally, I mean, because there is no Korean speech recognition yet and we're developing it, in many cases, often I reply in English.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
So even if the letters or emails come in Korean, you respond in English because of the technology that's available now.
Right.
Now, and are you also potentially working on a Korean language speech to text?
Yes, that's a very good question. Actually, we receive money from the government, and one of the things that we are doing is to make Korean speech recognition.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And the project name is Sejongdaewang Project, which means King Sejong Project.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, and he's the one who helped to bring about the Korean alphabet.
Right. At that time, he invented Korean alphabet because normal people, ordinary people, non-scholars, had difficulty using Chinese. So now we turn that around and say that it is in same spirit with Sejongdaewang Project because nowadays many ordinary people have hard time using English speech.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Here in Korea especially.
Yeah.
Well, sir, there are so many more questions that I have for you, and I'm really looking forward to the interview. Why don't we kind of get your room set up and give us a little bit of time, and we'll meet again for the main part of the interview.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yep,
okay, great. Well, Professor, I'm glad that we're able to kind of sit down here comfortably and start our interview.
Yes.
I'm really excited to get a chance to speak with you because you're really a pioneer in Korea in terms of helping so many people who are disabled to have not only hope, but to give them practical things to be able to do work-wise. and there's a lot that I want to ask you about your program.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I hear that there's a documentary that was made, and you're part of the documentary. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
A year and a half ago, a friend of mine in the United States told me she had another friend who is a producer in making a film on resilience. And they talked about me, and the producer asked me to participate in this. And at that time, I was visiting San Francisco, so I appeared, I think, in the interview part of the film.
I see.
Yeah.
And so the name of the documentary is Seeds of Resiliency?
Yeah, I think it's showing in movie theater at the moment.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. So I hear that that's also going to be on television soon too.
Right. I heard it'll be on public broadcasting studio.
Okay.
PBS.
PBS in the US.
Yeah, PBS next spring.
Fantastic. So you're one of the people that they interviewed, and they have a
Yes.
whole list of people that they
Yes.
interviewed for the show.
Yeah, including Holocaust survival, people who ran exile from a dictatorship country, many people who went through trauma and trouble.
Wow. What was your experience like working with them for the documentary?
When I was just doing the filming, I did not have the idea of how enormous this film was gonna cover. I was just telling my story, but when I saw the trailer, and then I could understand what the producer had in mind, and I felt very proud to be part of that piece. You know, just seeing the trailer, I realized that the documentary dealt with various different people, and I felt very proud to be part of it. I was very honored.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the documentary when it comes out, and hopefully even before next spring when it comes out on PBS.
Yes, yes.
I guess one of the most important things that has happened in your life is the accident that happened to you in 2006. I know that completely changed your life.
Yes.
And could you tell us about your job and what life was like before your accident?
Okay. I did my bachelor in Korea at Seoul National University. And I went to United States, and after spending 12 years abroad, I came back to Korea and started working at Korean Oceanographic Research Institute.
Okay.
After 7 years in Oceanography Institute and really getting the full flavor of science and leading a very productive and successful life, I moved to the university here in Korea. But I found it difficult to inspire students in a way that I found ocean science and earth science very interesting. So in 2006, we made an arrangement with California Institute of Technology, Caltech, and I brought 12 students, 13 including myself, to California for a geological field trip of California, because California is a desert. That means there are not much vegetation, so we can observe rocks and educate students to give them what the classic features look like. And California was a very good example of that. So we went there and towards the end of that geological field trip, the van that I was driving rolled over.
Oh.
For me, I have no recollection of that day.
Oh.
What happened that day?
And so you have no memory of the actual accident?
I woke up 3 days later, and that's, yeah, when I first realized what happened.
I actually can't imagine what that would have been like, and I don't think many people can. What was it like for you when you woke up 3 days later and weren't able to move?
It may sound strange, but even to this day, I have never been depressed or in denial or any trouble, you know. I just accept it very well because of those 3 days I was unconscious. I had this dream of near-death experience, dream of death.
If you don't mind me asking, what was that 3-day period, that dream state or the near-death experience like?
Well, it's a little bit, strange for me to say this, but that was a very pleasant experience. When I was unconscious, I knew that I knew for sure that I was gonna die, and this was end of it, and I'm gonna leave. And so it was a chance to reflect, look back at yourself and your past and become, terms with it,
Did you literally see your life flashing before you, like people say?
I thought about it a lot. I didn't see it, but I felt it. And I felt myself as I as I tried to lay things down, I felt my body being levitated a little bit,
So it was like an out-of-body experience.
I'm not sure what to say, but near-death experience was a very calm, and it was a chance to look back on your life and yourself. Even if those things happened, that was not the major part of my experience. My part of experience was asking questions to yourself, what have I done wrong? And you just look back and regret and reflect on the things that you might have done correctly if there was another chance. Things like that.
I see.
Yeah.
What was the extent of your paralysis at the time? Was it...
Same as this current.
Okay.
I'm paralyzed below my shoulder.
I see.
So this is the best that I can do.
I see.
So I'm paralyzed below my shoulder.
And below your shoulders, you have no sense or feeling of even heat or cold or sensation?
No sensation at all. So
I don't know how many people would react if something like that happened to them, especially if someone were fully mobile before. How did you cope with the fact that you were no longer able to move? And what were certain things that now you needed help with that you didn't need before?
Yeah, well, that question is even a mystery for me. Well, I asked myself, why didn't you become depressed or in denial or emotional trouble, How did you accept that fact so well? I myself, I don't know the answer myself.
Wow.
But I think it must have to do with the fact that even before my accident, I always consider myself lucky, and lucky because I was able to do the science or the things that I really enjoyed doing, and I had all the support and many people helped me. So I knew at the moment that I realized that I was going to die, I looked back at my life, and although there are things that I knew that I could have done better or I really wanted to finish, I said to myself that, how lucky a person I was, and even though I do not complete the path of my life, or if I am to terminate at this point, I looked at myself and said, you know, you are a damn lucky person, you know.
Wow.
And so
I mean, that's an incredibly positive way to look at your situation, and I don't know many people who would feel the same even if they lost, you know, the mobility of their foot, let alone their body. And I read and I've heard that you say that you never cried once since 2006 as a result of your accident.
I cried before, but not after.
Wow.
I don't know why.
Wow.
It was not intentional, but I did not really pity myself. For those people who do that, tell them to study oceanography.
Well, you know, I don't mean to be rude, but it doesn't seem normal to not cry. As a human being, we all go through different kinds of feelings, you know, just even if it's not related to our physical body, just not everyone can make us happy, and there are always certain stressful situations, difficulties, and so not even one time.
When I was in the United States, I went to 3 different hospitals, and every time you're admitted, they do all the new physical checkup, including psychological profiling.
Yes.
And psychiatrist comes in and talk with me, and they never come back, and they say, this patient doesn't need it.
Really?
Yeah, they check me off.
Wow. So they looked upon you really favorably and felt that there was no need for you to get any kind of psychological or psychiatric care or counseling as a result of the trauma. I mean, a lot of people can go through what we call PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, after a certain kind of traumatic event.
Right.
And there was nothing like that for you.
No. I tell people that's a mystery to me as well, you know. Why did I not go into the depression or denial? And some of my friends joke that he probably hurt his head where there is a negative thought. He hurt this part of his brain where people think negatively. So yeah, I injured that part.
Oh, wow. I wanted to ask you previously, the people who were in your car or in your van at the time, were there other people who were injured like yourself? Were there any fatalities? Did everyone survive it okay?
There were 7 people in the car, including myself. I was the driver. And I learned later, 4 months later, because the doctors told people not to tell that. But an undergraduate girl student who went along the trip had died on the scene.
Oh,
I realized
I'm so sorry.
that after 4 months, and that was a really devastating blow for me.
And all the other students who were in your car?
They all got out without any, without scratch. I mean, there was some scratch, but not without any accident. You know? They virtually free.
Yeah. Wow. When you learned of your students passing, what was that like for you?
Well, up to that point, even though I became paralyzed, I always thought that because nobody was hurt, that only me. So if I just come back, I always said everything will be normal again. You know, I was very glad that nobody else got hurt. So it was just me. If I just come back, then everything will be like as nothing happened. But when I heard that a student had died, I mean, that was really a blow for me.
What was her name?
Hae-jung Lee. But, you know, I had many unexplainable events or miracles that happened since the accident. The next day, I got a call from a person at the university telling me that Professor Onnuri, whom I did not know at all and did not know even he existed, has just won a very reputable research grant prize for his excellence in research from a foundation in Korea. And he wanted to donate his prize money, which is about 1억 won, so it's
about 100,000 US dollars.
And I thought this was a hoax or some kind of a mistake.
Wow. So he wanted to donate his prize money to you?
After hearing what happened to me.
Oh, wow.
And this was a person who I have never knew or thought he knew me, you know. And when this happened, not just the money, but people around me started chipping in for help.
Wow.
And because the student who died was also a student from Seoul National University, people around me did not want to be blamed later for just helping the professor. So they were in a little bit awkward situation. But then when they realized that somebody that Sang-mook did not know is helping in such a way, they felt a little bit shamed that they were not doing enough.
Yes.
And they all rose up and started helping me, and that
sounds incredible.
Yeah, so it's what I call random act of kindness.
Yes.
And so because of that, his real generosity, that I was able to get back and rise up again from that devastating blow. At that point, when I learned that the student had died, I really seriously considered not returning back to the university.
Really? Wow. So what was it that prompted you to come back?
Well, this is the only thing that I could do, and my life was saved and given another chance that I knew I had to come back.
I've heard you say that in other interviews that life has become better after the accident.
Yes.
And I'm curious why you say that life is better now.
Well, after the experience I had, you know, I asked people, you know, how many people have a chance to evaluate their life at the middle of their life. For me, at that moment, I looked back at my life and was able to reassess things and correct things if necessary. Having such a chance, I think, was a big blessing for me. I mean, I often compare it to like Scrooge in Christmas Carol.
Oh, yes.
Well, I was not a bad person like Scrooge, but, you know, Scrooge, at the eve of Christmas, the ghosts appeared and he was able to see his death. And that made him a better person and more wiser person. And although I was not like a Scrooge, my near-death experience and this accident, I think, had the same effect on me. That I knew that my life, if my life had ended up there, how I would be evaluated as. If I am born again, I would like to get a job that is very physical, like perhaps dancer or cheerleader, because after becoming injury, you know, I do many of the things in my head and without physical activity, real. So I really started envying people who can move in a very beautiful fashion or very exciting fashion. So a few weeks ago, I went to baseball park with my kids and saw the cheerleaders from a very far distance. They seemed to be really enjoying. So I said to myself, if I am born again, I would like to become a cheerleader.
Recently, I hear that you went on a 40-day journey across the U.S.
Yep.
I'd love to learn a little bit more about that trip.
Before my accident, I traveled as an oceanographer to study uncharted, unstudied seafloor. So I spent a lot of time in very remote places around the world. But after this accident, I realized that life is short. So I made this trip, such a trip I should have made when I had all the time. But people often do not recognize the value of this unless you lose it.
Yes.
You lose the opportunity and you know that if you don't do it, it's over.
So many people think of doing, but they've never had the chance.
Yes.
And you did that.
Yes.
You took that risk.
Because I had the accident. If there was no accident and no chance for me to reflect back on my life, I would still just be pondering of that. I wouldn't have put it into action.
You recently went back to the site of your accident.
I really wanted to visit this site and also visit the hospital, which I was airlifted by helicopter, and to say thanks to the people who saved my life.
Wow.
I always wanted to do that. That was always on my list. But until the lawsuits and every legal matters were settled, I could not really do it. But this 40-day was a chance for me to do it.
I see.
You know, because we are on a geological trip, this accident, which happened was at the Carrizo Plain National Monument. And there was this road called Soda Lake Road, on this long stretch of road. And we were there 5 hours under the sun, a very bright California sun. And during those 5 hours, only 3 cars passed. It was a very serene place, and I felt very like...
Sounds really beautiful, actually.
Yes. People who followed me said it's not that beautiful, but for me it was very beautiful because it was near San Andreas Fault, which geologically is a boundary between Pacific and North American plate. So being a geologist, there was a professional significance for me, and such a serene place.
Yes.
I went there to pay respect to the dead student, but I also told people that, you know, if I die, this is the kind of place I want to be buried, because it really felt like you're going back to nature in this serene, natural environment, you know. So I think about that place often.
I imagine.
Yeah.
During your trip, I heard that you met a lot of other quadriplegics, and I wonder, you know, what was the purpose for meeting them, and what was it like for you to meet other people in the States who were quadriplegic?
One of the person that I had to meet was a person named Chris Glasby. He lives in Montana, and he's a quadriplegic just like myself, and he hunts and does fishing and does all this outdoor activity. And seeing him do hunting and fishing was impressive, but I asked him, you know, isn't it a luxury? And he said, first, in Montana, it is not. And second, people who enjoy recreation tend to live a more healthy life, go back to work, and live more positive life. So all this recreational activity, it may look luxurious, but it's a luxury, it's something, but it is not. Because when people become disabled, they shun out themselves from the society, but recreation will bring them back, and it's very vital as a part of real rehabilitation.
I see.
So I really appreciate his view and comment.
Tell me about the time you went to Silicon Valley to drive the self-driving car.
First, I went to Silicon Valley to meet a blind engineer, Dr. Raman.
Yes.
He is a developer at Google Android phone in Silicon Valley Google office, and he made many features for people with for blind people. I met him, and I also asked him if I can take a look at the Google's new driverless car, because that was hot news in United States.
Yes, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and I really wanted to see the technology because during this trip, 2 caregivers took turn driving me across 40 days, 12,000 kilometers. But imagine that if there is a driverless car that they can take you anywhere via voice, you know, I wouldn't need such a service, and I could be more independent. But when I saw the car and things, you know, it's still a long way to go. Because you, not just the technology, you have to change the regulation and everything.
You inspire a lot of people around the world, and especially here in Korea, because of your positive attitude and the fact that you also have inspired people through your book. I hear that you've given a lot of talks, and I'm curious how often you give talks and why you give talks.
Because I'm a professor at Seoul National University, which is quite reputable position, that when I give talk, I don't really talk to inspire people emotionally. Initially, I started giving talks not to say how I recover bravely and did with strong will came back, but I wanted to show that despite these accident and level of injury, still one can function thanks to technology.
On October 14th, the 2012 Joy Old Park Festival themed Healing was ongoing at Olympic Park.
장애를 이기고 의지로서 미국 횡단을 할 수 있는 생각에 대해서 좀 알고 싶어서 왔습니다.
그 자녀들의 어떤 그 꿈과 희망을 심어주고 뭐 목표를 심어주는 그런 내용들이라고 생각을 해서 아들하고 같이 왔습니다.
Professor Lee Sang-mook shared his experiences with the audience under the theme Now or Never. The audience took down his words one by one, knowing that they would be precious inspiration to help overcome the darkest of times.
그래서 제가 학생들한테 학교에서 얘기하는 키다리 아저씨 이론이라는 걸 주장합니다. 그게 별게 아니라 우리가 남을 도와줄 때는 뭐 알아서 도와주는 게 아니라 자기를 모르고 이런 사람들을 돕고 하게 되면 그 사람들은 또 나중에 다른 사람들한테 전달함으로써 사회가 이게 파급 효과가 생겨서 우리가 더 좋은 사회를 만들어 나갈 수 있지 않을까 생각합니다.
자기가 사고를 당한 후에 그 교수님의 이렇게 긍정적인 태도 이런 것 때문에 더 많이 감명을 받은 것 같습니다.
사소한 일에도 좌절을 많이 하는 학생들한테 이상목 교수님을 보고 배워라. 그리고 항상 긍정적인 마음을 가져라라고 말해주고 싶어요.
After the talk, one audience member hangs back to speak with the professor. She tells the professor that she is the mother of a child with a disability and asks for advice.
장애인의 문제는 여성의 문제라고 봅니다. 네? 그래서 엄마가 어떻게 하느냐에 따라서 애들이 달라지거든요.
그래도 많이 좋아졌어요, 교수님.
네.
우리 아이가 지금 뭐 제 품에만 있는 게 아니라 이제 점점 성장을 하고 커가면서 이 사회의 일원이 될 거 아니겠습니까? 그럴 때 좀 더 강하게 이 어려운 역경을 이겨나갈 수 있도록 제가 엄마로서 잘 양육해야겠다 그런 생각이 들었습니다.
Professor Lee Sang-mook has discovered even more hope and happiness through his tragic experience, and he spends each day sharing that with the world. His message of unrelenting hope will change lives wherever he goes. You're working so hard to help improve the lives of many other people, and one of the projects that you've created is the QOLP, the Quality of
Life Technology.
Yeah. What are some of the activities or projects that you're starting within the QOLT program?
First part has to do with the devices and technology. So I told the government that software and hardware is important, but also education. Human side of it is important. So we have at the moment 8 institute companies developing technology from mobility in the car, Korean speech recognition.
Yes. Like the project earlier, the Sejongdaewang
project, and also there is a alternative and augmented device for communicating with students having language problem.
I see.
All these devices, but also I'm not really, because I'm not a developer, I let companies and other experts to run that part of the project, QLT project. The part that I'm focusing on is the education, and especially science and engineering education, which in United States you call STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yes.
And because many disabled students, even in our university and around Korea, take career in non-science area. And Korea boasts itself as one of the IT powerhouse. So I think there is a gap. We started examining why students with disability weren't coming into science and engineering, and one of our idea is that because there is no role model, so we are trying to create stars and successful role models in science and engineering so that students with disability would take career in this area as well.
That's fantastic.
So we have a motto that people with disability save the world.
That's a nice motto.
Instead of Superman saving the world, as opposed to.
That's a great motto.
So we have that, under that motto, we are trying to create very high-level, talented scientific programmers and engineers.
Wow. Well, I hope and wish for all the best success with that program. It sounds like it'll have a huge impact on Korean students as well as Korean future leaders. And I know that one of the things that you've been saying is that you want for Korea to become a leader in not only IT, but technology
to help disabled people?
Right. I think, well, I have a theory that, you know, a country's understanding on and awareness of disability always is proportional or in parallel with the country's economic level. So only when people are well off, then they recognize neighbors around them. And the fact that Korea is one of the country in the world that has grown most rapidly in terms of economy, that I believe that Korea is a country that can also demonstrate our awareness and perception of people with disability globally. And so because we have made such a rapid growth, we also have the responsibility to show how well we have solved this diversity and disability issues in the country. And so I like to think that Korea can be a role model to other developing countries around the world, in that with the economic growth, you have to deal with this social matters.
Well, I wish you all the success with that.
Thank you.
Tell us about the GILP program.
GILP stands for Global Inclusive Leadership Program. And, you know, I tell people that my education at United States, at MIT, because of that, that opened a lot of doors of opportunity when I returned back to Korea. Likewise, in the developing country, students, young people with disability have hard time getting education. And education is the key to success and recognition. So our idea is to invite, identify and recruit these young disabled students in developing countries, give them a good education in Korea, even up to 4-year degree.
Interesting.
And they will return to their country, but because they had a higher education, they will become the future leaders of disability in their country.
Wow.
And this will make a global network and propagate. If Korea does anything useful and good, it'll be another Hallyu, Korean style.
Yes, a Korean wave.
Korean wave, yeah. And by doing so, we will contribute to this global society.
Wow.
That's one way we think we should.
What would you say to people, abled or disabled, who are listening to this program, who are viewing this program, in terms of giving them a type of hope for the future? Any comments or advice that you would give people?
I give talk at many places, and these days, you know, it's all about mentoring and healing. And one day, I asked myself, how do I get healed? I mean, I give so much talk on mentoring others and healing others. I mean, but how about myself? And somebody said, don't you get healed by helping others? And so I think that the best thing that a person can do is to help others. It's the most human and most beautiful and most meaningful thing in life.
Well, Professor, I look forward to seeing all of the things that you have planned in the future with your work, with your students, with the QLT and the GILP. And I think that you've got just an incredible amount of influence with so many people that I look forward to seeing Korea becoming what you envision it to become for disabled people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.